Hello, everybody, and welcome to our baseball review. We're here today. My name is Frank Fiorentino. I'm with my co-host, Dick Reedy.
Hello, Frank.
Hello,
How are you
Dick.
today?
We're here after the Red Sox have finished an 8-game winning streak,
Tremendous.
4 in a row against the Yankees and 4 in a row against Baltimore. And it looks like our Red Sox will be in the playoffs this year. But, Dick, we sat here right after the season, just about when the season began, and we talked about a lot of possibilities, but we also mentioned the fact that the Red Sox had a lot of question marks in terms of whether some of these players that they have would come through this year, and they'd had to come through in order for the Red Sox to be in competition.
No question about it, yeah.
Right. And I think some of the players we talked about were Bradley, Ramirez. Was Mookie Betts going to be as good as he was the previous year? That was a question mark. And pitching was a major question mark for the Red Sox.
Well, I
So-
think their catching was also,
The catching was also a question
Yeah.
mark. Right. And so I know you have some thoughts about what the Red Sox did during the offseason and what they brought in here with Dombrowski now here for a full season. So you might want to comment a little bit about what you think is happening.
yeah, I would, the thing about Dombrowski is the fact that he came in with a great deal of fanfare, and I really didn't, as I'm sure you did, wasn't sure what he was going to do. But in fact, he made a change. They got Price, he got Kimbrell from San Diego, he made some other change. He got eventually during the year, he brought Pomerantz in, but the question you raised was true. I mean, was Bradley going to hit? You know, was Mookie Betts going to be able to deliver like we talk about? And,
Was Ramirez going to be able to hit?
Yeah.
Ramirez, I think, has been a big surprise, I think, defensively
yeah,
at first base. He's only made 4 errors this year, which is beyond my comprehension.
yeah, it's quite good.
It's quite good. He still needs to manage a little better his footwork around first base, but all in all, first base has been covered pretty well this year, and his hitting, based on last year,
Tremendous.
when everybody, all the pundits were saying it's time to get rid of him. He's got 29 home runs and almost 90 RBIs, and he's hit pretty well in the last 3 weeks or so. But even so, even during the season, he's had a much better season than he had in the previous year.
I thought he changed his attitude as well.
He was always a problem in some form or other, with
No.
no matter who he was with.
Yeah, you're
Right.
right. He was kind of lackadaisical.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the finesse around first base that other guys do. But he did a nice job.
Right. We're missing one other thing here in that Bedroya, who we thought was on his way down, came back this year, and even though he's pitched, he's hit very well in the last month and a half, he still has been playing all year long, as opposed to the other years when he's been out for 2 months
Yeah.
or a month. So Bedroya has played very well as well. So I think the big hole for the Red Sox this year has been third base.
Yeah, no question about it.
They don't have a steady third baseman. Shaw is batting around 250, 260. Defensively, he's okay, I think, but there's no bat out of third base. And the Red Sox have the worst production out of a third baseman than any team in the American League.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. They
Yeah.
have not delivered there.
They have not delivered at third base. Left field was another issue. And now they got this kid, Benintendi, who's just a little bit of a sample here of what he might be able to do. I think with a full year under his belt next year, and I think the Red Sox will use him as their left fielder, because they haven't had a left fielder either, consistently.
Yeah, that's true. They have, and Benintendi coming up. I thought they were trying to push him up too soon, but he's delivered.
Well, they did push him up quickly, and then they pushed this kid Moncada up quickly too,
Right.
and he just hasn't been able to
Can't hit
do
the
it at
curve.
this point. He can't hit the curveball at this point. Right, but he's got a lot of potential. The other big question mark that we talked about when we were talking about it at the beginning of the year was their pitching. You might want to comment on what your thoughts are on their pitching.
Well, and their pitching, you're right. We had a lot of question marks. I don't know if they're going to be, were they going to be able to deliver? You know, was Price going to be the man? And you never know. I mean, even when he played for Toronto, the last few games, he wasn't so great. He comes on, and he had some difficulty in the first few
He was,
games.
he's won 7 in a row now, right in a
Yeah.
row. But prior to that, he was a disappointment,
Yeah.
really.
He
Yeah,
hasn't
up and
delivered.
through August, he was a disappointment. And the Red Sox really didn't have any production out of him in the manner in which they thought they should have.
That's
When you're
true.
paying this guy $230 million for 7 years or so. And
my God.
yeah, I know, it's like Monopoly money.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
But he didn't deliver, and I didn't know whether the season was going to fall on his face.
Yeah, although he does have a history of not doing well in the playoffs. So,
Yeah, so-
we'll have to see what happens this year. Well, the biggest surprise in the pitching staff has been Porcello.
Yeah, no question.
Who
about it.
ever figured that he would be a 21-game winner? And
Yeah.
with 4 losses, one of which was 1-0 about a week ago.
Yeah, he had to go down to the minors, though, to recover his,
Correct.
correct whatever he was doing incorrectly, if you will.
Yes. So he's been the major pitching surprise. The Red Sox have hung around up until the middle of August or so. They had a major relief. Their relief pitching was a problem as well.
Yeah, it was.
Koji Uehara was out, and everybody thought he was, done. He's come back for a second life, I think, in the last 3 weeks or so. He's been there. They've been looking for an eighth inning pitcher, and
Setup guy, yeah.
setup guy, and they haven't had one up until the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Cody has delivered, I have to say that.
Yeah,
since-
he has delivered.
Since
and
he came back.
He's delivering in a manner in which he delivered in 2013.
Yeah, no question about
Yeah,
that.
he's done that. Ziegler,
Wow, he's been good.
He's been coming around. Ziegler was coming around. He was a closer for Arizona.
Yeah,
So that's another move Dombrowski made. So I think in terms of relief pitching, they've led the American League in run average. Relief pitching has this month.
yeah, they've
Yeah.
done a great job.
Yeah, we're 20 days into September, so
Well, Kimbrel, I remember the first few games of Kimbrel coming on. I mean, one game he tried to blow his fastball by one of the I forget which hitter it was, maybe it's Baltimore, and the guy hits a grand slam off him.
mhm,
Welcome to the American League,
right.
And so he's been unsteady, and I mentioned earlier, I don't think that when Kimbrel throws that fastball, he knows where it's going.
I don't think he does either. I don't think any of us do. Yeah, he's in that curveball that he throws
Yeah.
can be anywhere too.
I mean, they think that these major leaguers can hit a fastball.
Yes, they can.
And it's not like, I mean, you take a look at a guy like Koji, he's throwing at 88, 89.
He's a junk ball pitcher.
Yeah, and then Kimbrel comes in, you think he's going to blow them by. It doesn't work that
yeah.
way.
So I think the Red Sox, with Kimbrel, he's their closer, and but you know what? He had knee surgery in the middle of the
Yeah.
year, and he did come back.
He did. He's improved since then.
Yeah, he's improved since then. So I think even though we're hearing a lot of negativity about whether the Red Sox can pull off a victory and some victories in the playoff, I think that the old saying is we've been here before, and then they lose, and that could happen this year too. If you look at their production, they lead the major leagues in many categories.
Oh,
The team batting average,
phenomenal.
runs production,
Yeah.
the variance between the number of runs scored and the number of runs allowed. But we just have to remember, the Red Sox have 12 wins and 49 losses
Okay.
in games that they score 4 or less runs.
Yeah, I was mentioning to you earlier, I was watching one game against Baltimore recently, okay? And I
When
think
they were in Boston a week ago,
Yeah, they won big time.
11-2.
And then the next night, they lose 1-0.
Correct. And that's been somewhat of their history. That's why I
Yeah.
say when they score 4 runs or less, they've only won 12 games.
Yeah,
And if you look at the games that they've beat the Yankees now, they've scored more than 5 runs in all those games. They scored 5 runs or more against Baltimore this last week. So the low-scoring games they've had trouble winning. And when you see how many times they've left the bases loaded this year, I don't know the statistics, but it's been many, many
Yeah.
times, and it's been very frustrating when you get the bases loaded with none out or the bases loaded with 1 out and you can't bring a run home.
and they got some power hitters there.
And they get right.
They don't deliver.
And it hasn't happened. So I think one other situation that we see is Sandy Leone,
Yeah,
the catching. All right? He was on a hot streak for about 6 or 7 weeks. I think he's come back to the real world because he was a 187 hitter last year. and they got rid of him, and then they brought him back.
That's true.
But I think he had this 6 or 7 weeks there where he was hitting 500, 450, and but I think he's back to reality.
Yeah, he is.
And like he's won for the last 18, I think. And
Although when the Sox dropped him last year, the question was, should we renew his contract? There were about 3 or 4 other clubs that wanted him,
yeah, he went to Washington initially,
and he wanted to stay with the Red Sox
Right.
organization.
but they did let him go. He went to
Yeah.
Washington, and then Washington released him, and they took him back. The Red Sox got a little bit of a catching situation here now. You've got Hannigan there. You got Vasquez, who was supposedly the heir apparent to being the #1 catcher.
Yep, can't hit though.
You can't hit at this point, right? But he's good defensively. They brought this guy up from Texas,
Hollander.
Hollander, right? And now they got Leon. So they got 4 catchers here. And I think probably Hannigan is going to go this year.
I would think so.
Yeah, I think he's going to go. Leon will stay. And I don't know what they'll do with Vasquez, whether they'll keep him for this year. And don't forget, we lost a left fielder back in, I want to say it was in May, when he crashed into the wall. He hasn't played since. So I think the Red Sox need to look at their catching situation for the future, and I think Vasquez is their best defensive catcher.
No question about it. He really has the tools. He's very quick on his feet, but somewhere along the line, he does not seem to hit the ball.
Right. Now you got
And-
Swihart, who, as I said, got
Yeah,
hurt.
yeah,
Swihart went hurt in May, and he hasn't been back for the rest of the season. So he's another catcher that was playing left field.
Right, but he was always a fielder before he was a catcher.
Yes.
He had a very strong arm, so someone thought, well, why don't we convert this guy into a catcher? And he proved to be okay, but defensive skills are not there.
No, his defensively
Compared to the other guys.
compared to the other guys, they're not there. So you got Swihart to deal with next year
Yeah.
too. But I think Benintendi is going to get the shot at left field.
Yeah,
And can this kid do it or not? I don't know.
more than likely.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he does next year. As
Well-
these pitchers catch up to these guys, where
Very quickly.
very quickly, very quickly. He does have a quick bat, though. I can
Yeah,
see
he
his
is
swing.
a good hitter, no question.
Yeah, he's got a
about it.
quick bat, and that's I hit a home run the other night with a very quick bat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is good. He looks like he's 13, though.
Oh yeah, he does. He looks like a teenager.
But
Yeah.
he does the job, and he's hit wherever he's played.
He's hit wherever he's played. Yes.
You know, I mean, in high school, college, even in the minors, and now up here with us,
Right.
it's quite good. So
It is.
I think that's good about him.
I think where we're standing right now, where the Red Sox are bumped out the Yankees with 4 wins. The Yankees came
Wow.
into Boston with 4 games behind the Red Sox, and they knocked them out of there. They're 8.5 out now.
Yeah,
Baltimore, they went into Baltimore, and Baltimore was 3 games out of first place when they went in there, and they knocked them out of there with 4 in a row, which is really very difficult to do.
true.
But they beat them 4 in a row, and they beat them. They didn't beat them 11-1 or 10-2. They were all 5-run games, 5-3, 5-1,
And
etc.
they held them,
And they held them. So their pitching did pretty well.
no question.
Right. So now you have to look at, will the Red Sox be able to hit in the playoffs? And I still think Farrell said the other day that even if we clinch this, which I think they're going to clinch it probably by next Tuesday or Wednesday, the magic number, as they say, is 5. That means combination of Toronto losses and Red Sox wins.
Mhm.
So if Toronto loses a couple and the Red Sox win a couple, they're down to 1.
Yeah,
So it could happen within the middle of next week, which I hope it does, because I don't really want to see them play Toronto the last 3 games, which are at Fenway next weekend. Anything can happen in those games.
no question about that.
Anything can happen. So I would hopefully they can clinch this by the middle of next week. But with the playoffs coming, Farrell indicated that he wanted to keep going because he wants to have the best record in the American League. Cleveland is 1 game ahead of the Red Sox in terms of that, and Texas is 1 game ahead of them in terms. So the Red Sox could finish with the best record in the American League. If that's the case, then all the playoff games they'll have the home field advantage.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it is terrific.
I
But the
don't-
Red Sox are not a bad road team.
Yeah,
They lead the American League in road wins.
I think they overall are a good club. They've come a long way since we talked earlier in the season, and hopefully they continue doing that. and they started to mature and develop as a unit, you know. But now we get into the playoffs, and I wonder who we're going to have as our third starter. We got Porcello and we've got Price. Who's number
Rodriguez.
three? Rodriguez will come in, you think?
Rodriguez will be the third one, and Buckholz will be the fourth one.
Yeah, Buckholz. Yeah.
And Buckholz had 1.5 feet out the door back in June. He
Yeah.
went to the bullpen. They didn't even use him in the bullpen. I remember him sitting in there for over 2 weeks before he had a shot to
And
come
doing
in.
nothing.
Doing nothing. Right. He's pitched pretty well in the last 3 weeks or so.
I'll have to say this, Frank.
Although he
Buckholz,
is scary when he's out there.
When he's on,
Yeah,
he's really a top-notch pitcher.
he is
But
when he's on.
When he's not on, oh my gosh.
He has not been consistent, obviously.
Yeah, that's his problem.
And that's the problem. And so I think who's going to start in the playoffs? I say Porcello will be the number one starter.
Yeah, I do as well.
And then Price,
Mhm.
and then you will have Rodriguez, and that means 2 left-handers in a row, Price and Rodriguez. And if you go to a fourth starter, it would be Buckholz.
Yeah.
You must remember, Dick, and you know this better than any of us, that in the playoffs you face the number 1, 2, and 3 starters.
Yeah.
You don't face the 4th and 5th starter too often in the playoffs. So you're going to face good pitching. And Cleveland has some pretty good pitching. Kluber,
They've done
Fuller,
yeah.
yeah, very good pitching. Texas is another team that is questionable in terms of the American League West is very weak. When you look at the teams in the American League West, Seattle is the only team that has any type of a chance of doing anything. Oakland is not good. The Angels are not good. Texas has been the best team out there in the West. So I think Texas may be an overrated team. So we'll see what happens with Texas. They got decent pitching. So the Red Sox are going to have to, I think, capitalize on their opportunities, which they haven't done consistently, especially with the bases loaded.
Yeah, if they don't do that, then they're not going to advance too far in the
No,
playoffs.
you've got to take advantage of those
Yeah.
opportunities.
You know?
Because I don't think you're going to see, I may be wrong, but I don't think you're going to see these 10-2 games and 11-3 games when they place these teams in the playoffs.
How do you think? There's still some questions around Farrell this year. You know, and
There is. In-game managing is
Yeah.
an issue with him in the terms of what the media is saying and what the media thinks of Farrell. But how can you not keep him when they've done what they've done here?
That's so true.
But I think the playoffs are going to be the issue. If you remember the Pedro Martinez, Grady Little situation against the Yankees in the playoffs, and he got fired after that.
Yeah, he did.
Martinez was going in the 8th inning, and they were ready to take him out. He went out there, and he got talked out of it, and Martinez stayed in the game, and they lost. He got beat up in the 8th inning, and the question was, why didn't you take him out of there when you should have? And they fired him after that.
I think that Farrell's fortunate to have this guy Terry Lavolo
Yes.
as his backup, as the bench coach, and he does a very good job. He communicates extremely well with the players and kind of gives them some buoyancy and what have you. That will be good for that. But if Farrell doesn't manage well, I'm not sure he would last.
Yeah, and as an in-game manager, he's made some bad moves this year.
Yeah,
But in spite of it,
they've won. So
they've won. They've been hanging in there up till 2 weeks ago. They were down a game, up a game, down a game, up, down 3 games, up 2 games. But the last 2 weeks, they've eliminated 2 of their contenders.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they've really
Yeah.
done that, and that's the Red Sox were really on a teeter-board back in July, and I think a turnaround was when they beat Arizona 3 in a row at Fenway Park. Started to
big
move them.
series,
It was
yeah.
a big series, even though Arizona was not a great team. They still put 3 in a row in there after they had lost 2 out of 4 to Minnesota, who was probably the worst team in baseball. And they lost 2 out of 3 there in Minnesota, in Boston against Minnesota. And they come back, and I think Farrell was really on the edge after that. And they come back and beat Arizona 3 in a row, and they sort of went on a little bit of a roll after that.
Well, they did. Then they had these hitting streaks. Mookie Betts had the streak. Jackie Bradley had a streak.
29 games for Bradley.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so those kind of pieces of activity worked well to their advantage.
Correct.
But I was even wondering, are they going to fall apart in July and
Yeah,
August?
that's what I said. We've seen all this
Yeah.
before.
And
Yeah.
oh
Yeah,
my-
we have. They have not. So at least we can see where the most consistent player, I think, for the Sox this year has been Betts.
Yeah.
Overall, the most consistent. He's got 100. He's got over 200 hits. He's scored over 100 runs. He's got 20 home runs. He's got 100 RBIs. I mean, and defensively, as an outfielder,
He's made one error.
made one error and made some great defensive plays in the outfield. Couple last week against the Yankees.
Oh, fabulous. I was
Fabulous,
there.
yeah. So I think he's been their most consistent player. Bradley, defensively, is very good. We know that. And he had this little streak going 29 games, and he was hitting in the 340s and the 330s, and now he's at 270, which is where he really is. He's a
Most likely,
270 hitter. But he's got 29 home runs or 25 home runs.
Yeah.
So he's hit with some power. The biggest surprise, I'd have to say, would be two people. On the offensive side would be Ramirez.
Ramirez, no question about him.
Yeah, and I think on the pitching side would be Porcello.
Yeah, I actually thought that we overpaid for Porcello.
We did.
When we got him, when I saw him with Detroit, he was fabulous, But then last year he fell apart, and you said, this guy's just going to be.
Yeah, he pitched well with Detroit, but you know what? He's got, I don't know what it is in baseball, but some pitchers get a lot of run support.
Yeah.
He was 15 and 12, I think, with Detroit, and the average runs per game for him in Detroit was like 7. And the Red Sox are the same thing. He's close to 7 runs with the Red Sox, but he has pitched
Extremely
very well,
yeah.
even without the 7 runs.
Yeah, he is
He's pitched
pitching
very well.
very
He's
well.
1/10 of 1 point behind leading the American League in earned run average.
That's really
This
cool.
guy Pineda from the Yankees is like 3.067, and Porcello is 3.068.
Well,
And so, the earned run average is
yeah, he's delivered.
right.
You pay this kind of money. This year he delivered.
Right. So he's a Cy Young candidate.
Yeah, he is.
I think Kluber's one for Cleveland. I think, those are the two best in the American League at this point. So we got a Cy Young candidate. We got an MVP candidate in Betts.
Yeah.
So we got two people that are two big offensive and pitching awards that come out, the Cy Young and the MVP. And we have not mentioned Big Poppy.
I know it.
We have not mentioned him. Amazing what he's done.
You're right. Incredible. I never thought he would deliver like he has this year.
No, we had him dead and buried a couple of years ago. We said
Yeah.
he's done.
Boy, he has
Yeah.
delivered in spades.
Right. So that leads to the question, Dick. What do we do to replace him next year?
Well, the way there was talk about why don't we move Ramirez into the designated hitter spot,
Yeah.
but hey, he's played well enough at first base, so we keep him there. So maybe we go out and get the guy from Toronto.
Encarnacion,
Yeah,
right, who is 32 at 3 years old, has hit a massive number of home runs over
my
his
God.
career, would be the left fielder for the Red Sox, which leaves some spaces for others if they can get him. He's a free agent, but I don't know whether they want to pay him what he might be looking for.
yeah.
Bautista is also a free agent, but he's had a very poor year this
Yeah,
year.
He's batting like 235.
235 and with 16, 17 home runs,
Yeah.
and away from his 45 and 50 that he's had the last few years. So Bautista is a free agent. So if they can get and Ortiz's big friend is this Encarnacion from Detroit. Toronto.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah, very close. So they're going to have to do something to
Well,
try to at least in some area, move some of Ortiz's power into another guy. And I think that's where they ought to be looking at. They need some power.
oh yeah, I mean, I'm thankful that they never got that guy Davis from Baltimore.
Yeah, they didn't get him right.
He struck out over 200 times. And yet you take a look at Mike Napoli.
Yep. Look what he's doing with Cleveland.
My God, he's doing a great job.
Right, he's doing with Cleveland.
You
We
know,
got a couple of minutes left, Dick, and I think we ought to look at the playoff coming up.
Sure.
I would say that the Red Sox have as good a chance as anybody because I don't see an overpowering team in the playoffs. Cleveland's a good team. If Toronto is in there, they're a good team. Texas is in there, they're a good
They're
team.
okay.
Yeah, they're going to be okay. So I think you're going to see some good teams in there. Detroit has just snuck in ahead of Baltimore
Yeah,
for the second wild card, which is a one-game playoff.
yeah,
The second wild card game is one game.
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you win or lose and you're out. So the Red Sox are going to play somebody from the wild card if they finish first, which we think they will. So they're going to have a little time off here before they get into the playoffs. They're going to play a wild card winner, depending on who wins and the seeds that they call them the seed. The team with the best record will play the winner of the one-game playoff.
Right.
Yeah, because the winner of the one-game playoff has the lowest seed, and the Red Sox would have the best seed, or Texas will play them. Who's ever the number one seed will play the winner of the one-game playoff. And then it depends on who else is in there. Cleveland, as I say, is close in terms of Red Sox and wins and losses. They're one behind the Cleveland. Texas is still one ahead or two ahead of the Red Sox. So even though if the Red Sox clinch, they might want to keep going to try to get the best record in the American
Yeah,
League.
I would try to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
you like to rest your players, but in fact, you want to get the best.
Yeah, you don't want to sit them
possible.
around for too long either.
Yeah,
And so I think that's what the Red Sox might be doing. Because Farrell said he wants to try to get the best record in the American League, and he's got a shot at it.
yeah.
He does have a shot at it. Because
I'd like to see
Cleveland
him get
is
it.
Cleveland's not in a race. Texas is not in a race. Texas is 9 games ahead of the second place team. Cleveland's 8 games ahead of the second place team. Now the Red Sox are 5 games ahead of Toronto. So Cleveland and Texas aren't looking to do much unless they are going to fight to try to get the best record, which they should. So I think now the papers we ought to be looking at, what has Texas done tonight? What has Cleveland done? What have the Red Sox done for the best record?
Yeah.
Because there's only one game apart from them, so it'll be interesting to see.
I'd say watch Cleveland. Cleveland's got some good pitching.
Yes, right. So I think in the long run, we have more happening this year in baseball, and especially with our Red Sox, than we thought at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see what happens here.
I'm looking forward to that.
We are
because-
too. I'm looking forward to it. And we will be back with everybody, I think, to discuss what happens in the playoffs after the playoffs and World Series is over at the end of October.
Should be interesting.
Should be interesting. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you in about a month. Hopefully we'll have a world champion. So thank you, Dick.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Nice to have everybody here. Thank you, everybody.